We are back after a very long time, but I felt like this topic was important. Some people asking me what I think about this because I live in Hungary. My daughter is Hungarian. My wife is Hungarian. So yeah, this is important for me for sure. We have the elections coming up soon in Hungary and see if Viktor Orban is gonna stay president or not. And we have JD Vance, someone that has a very questionable background. And I wonder if you're gonna get gaslight like we did last time with Marco Rubio when he was talking to the European leaders. So that's gonna be interesting. Now, I have somewhat favorable opinions about both Viktor Orban and JD Vance, but I know perfectly clear that they are not angels. So let's keep it at that. With everything that is going on in Iran, this is quite a big problem for Hungary and for Europe because we need energy. We don't have energy. I mean, Norway has energy, but overall, Europe does not have energy, especially since we are avoiding using nuclear, which is a big mistake, of course. But winters can be very cold in Europe, especially here in Hungary. It's quite difficult because we are right now in April and it's still very, very cold. During the night, the temperatures will still go to 0 Celsius in April once again. And because of that, people need gas or oil to warm up their houses, right? Or coal, but coal, no one wants to use coal, right? Because it's too polluting. So this is something extremely important for Europe in general, but for Hungarians in specific. So yeah, it's a big deal. And on top of that, we have everything still going on in Russia and Ukraine. Also, Ukraine has been trying to make some problems with Hungary. And my opinion in regards to Zelensky, it's very, very bad. Once again, none of these people are angels. Zelensky is definitely a demon, especially when you know his background. So, yeah. Okay, let's listen what JD Vance has to say and Viktor Orban. And it seems like after this there is another speech, but we'll analyze that one in another video. This, I guess, is just the introduction. So, okay, here we go.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to respectfully welcome you all, and I'd like to especially welcome His Excellency JD Vance, Vice President of the 50th Vice President of the United States of America, at this press conference on the occasion of his visit to Hungary. I'd like to welcome Prime Minister Viktor Orban and Hungarian and American delegation members. I'd like to ask Prime Minister Viktor Orban to deliver his statement. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If you'll allow me, I'm going to speak in my mother tongue, Hungarian. I'd like to respectfully and cordially welcome Vice President Vance in Hungary. The last time a Vice President from the US visited Hungary was 35 years ago, and we haven't had such a high ranked American dignitary in Hungary for 20 years. And 20 years, that's quite a long period of time. With the election of President Trump, I believe a golden era has been ushered in our relations. We have enumerated the year of records was 2025 in terms of economic cooperation. 26 also is increasing impetus. We have increased our turnover with 50%, and we had 30 American companies announce FDI to the tune of 100 billion Hungarian forints. We've also strengthened our cooperation, expanded it with space technology and defense. We owe gratitude to President Trump and Vice President Vance for standing by Hungary during the past years. The United States of America is the strongest country in the world, and I'm happy to say that they are our allies today. The peace and the security of Hungary, therefore, is guaranteed. Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, so a big introduction from Viktor Orban. The translator is actually very, very good, and Viktor Orban could have spoken in English, and I appreciate when world leaders speak in English because this allows everyone to understand, right? English is probably one of the easiest languages, And yeah, so he was speaking in Hungarian. It was being translated very fast, so that was awesome. Now, Viktor Orban talks about the golden era since Trump was elected. And this was true during the 2016 to 2020. It was very nice. Europe as a whole was extremely positive about not Europe, not the European leaders, the European population. Because Trump was a breath of fresh air, and if you are, especially if you are right wing or centered leaning, you would see this as something positive. Because even back then, and even before that, we were already experiencing the results of multiculturalism that we had throughout Europe, and especially if you were to countries like Sweden. The results of multiculturalism have been going on for a very long time, and they have not been the best. Let's say that having some kebab shop or whatever else food stand in your country is not positive big enough to hide all the other problems that you have, right? Even that some liberal white girls would like to tell you that is just not the case. So this golden era of prosperity for Hungary, it's actually true. The value of the currency increased a little bit, I guess. The salaries, the wages went up as well. But of course, after we had the COVID and all those things at the same time, so big inflation and so on. Now, on the other hand, the native Hungarians, I'm not talking about other Hungarians that are not native. The Hungarians, they see a lot of jobs coming, but maybe Viktor Orban is not going to like to say this or is not going to say it, but there have been a big influx of legal migrants into Hungary. And even that those migrants come legally, not everyone likes them. Not everyone likes them. And you are having the same situation that you have in the United States, where the legal migrants themselves are becoming a problem. So yeah, it's just the way it is. Because they are competing for the jobs that the native Hungarians need, right? They need for themselves. And that's a big problem for sure. And it's just the way it is. Now, on the other hand, yeah, sure, there have been some big investments in terms of industry in Hungary. Once again, those jobs might be too specialized on certain areas that might not be available for most Hungarians. And on top of that, there are also some big concerns about the pollution that they are causing in these industries. We're talking about, I think it's the lithium industry, automobile industry as well, and a few other situations. So yeah, and the biggest problem overall for many Hungarians, not all, of course, I think the country is divided 50-50, is that Viktor Orban friends are benefiting way too much than they should be in regards to these industries, their advancement, and also the profits out of them, right? And that the money that the country supposedly is making is not being invested on the country. Is this true? Maybe there is a little bit of truth on this. Maybe it's 50-50. I'm not sure. I'm not into political circles in Hungary in order for me to know this. But as an observant and as someone that listens to the concerns of Hungarians, and I'm not Hungarian, by the way, I'm Portuguese, based on these concerns, people are very upset about Viktor Orban, and that's why maybe he's going to be kicked out next week. Is that going to be something positive? I'm not sure. It's because the situation that Hungary has, like I said, they need the oil, whether it is coming from the Middle East, whether it is coming from Russia. They need the oil, they need the gas to keep the houses warm. And I'm not sure if any of the contenders that are not him have the bones to handle such pressure. So yeah, that's something that is very important, because once again, dealing with the European Union and dealing with Russia and Ukraine at the same time can be quite tough and rough. And at least Viktor Orban already has some experience in that, which once again, apart from all the negatives, at the end of the day, you need to survive, right? Your basic instinct, it has to be to survive. And with the cold that we have here, you need oil and gas to survive. So that's like the minimum that is required.
And we also discussed the fact that Europe is heading towards one of the worst energy crises of all times. We are seeing drastic price hikes, and if we do not take measures on time, we are going to see a shortage of energy, oil and gas. And in this situation, it is especially important that we have the energy cooperation between the US and Hungary, without which we would not be able to guarantee the energy needs of Hungary, and we could not cap our utility prices. We have talked about the United States efforts to achieve peace. Hungary has always supported the US and President Trump personally in this peace effort. We've been living in the shadows of a war for 4 years now, and we are convinced that if President Trump were the president in 2022, there would not be a war now. It would not have started. And if the Europeans, especially Brussels, would not be blocking the peace efforts of the president, peace would prevail, would have been reinstated in Ukraine for a long time already.
Okay, so this is interesting what he's saying. I think he's glazing, right? He's glazing Trump a little bit, and I understand that on his position, but I'm not exactly sure how the United States have been helping Hungary with the gas situation and with the oil situation. They don't help at all. It's actually the opposite. The sanctions that they apply to the European Union, the United States applying sanctions to the European Union and Hungary to not get oil and gas from Russia, it's terrible for us. So what are they helping? Oh, they are helping because they did not apply sanctions to Hungary from buying gas from Russia that is being sanctioned itself. Does this make sense? It doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make any sense. He's glazing something that is like a punishment already. It's not the maximum punishment, but it's a punishment already. And that's a big, big problem that people don't get. And we cannot forget that we also had the gas pipeline that was coming from Russia to Germany that was also destroyed. We cannot forget about that, right? And who's going to pay for the reconstruction of that gas pipeline? Good question, right? And who was the responsibility? It was the US, the United States. Whether it was Trump or the swamp or Joe Biden or the global elite and so on that controls the United States and Israel and so on, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Europeans are suffering more because that pipeline was destroyed. And when I talk about Europeans, I'm talking about Russians as well, because whether people like it or not, Russians are Europeans, and Europeans have insane similarities to Russia. Any Russians that migrate to European countries, including my own, Portugal, which is it's like the opposite side of Europe compared to Russia, the level of assimilation is 99% or 100%, right? And because of that, I have to call Russians Europeans because they are Europeans. And we cannot have this continued divide between Europe and Russia just because the United States wants to control everything, right? Imperialism should be stopped, and having this kind of sanctions and everyone living at a lower standard just because of the United States and the cabal that controls them, that is just not acceptable. But okay, let's continue with the glazing. So far, Viktor Orban is doing very well.
Also explain to the Vice President that Hungary is experiencing very, very, very harsh and very open interference by foreign security services into our elections. This is why we especially welcome the decisions of the President of the United States of America, with which he has closed the financial taps that supported interference into the elections of other countries. I've been waiting for a long, long time for this meeting, and I'm very grateful that we met today. I am grateful that we were able to discuss with the Vice President the pressing issues, the great issues of Western civilization. I am not sharing any secret when I say that there's a continuous discussion between us, an exchange of experiences related to government work, especially in 4 areas. 1, migration. Number 2, gender ideology. Number 3, family policy. And number 4, global security. Because in these fields, Hungary has amassed substantial experiences and quite an extended network of contacts in Eastern Europe and the Balkans. And as a result of our discussions today, we have agreed that it is in the interest of both parties to continue this cooperation, and that the strategic cooperation between the 2 countries is going to be continuous and will be continued. Thank you very much for honoring us with your presence, for coming to Hungary. Prime Minister, thank you very much, and now I ask JD Vance to deliver his statement.
Okay, so before JD Vance starts, I think that we all agree that gender ideology, all this woke nonsense that once again is created by liberals, usually Jewish liberals, to mention that, maybe even former Bolsheviks or members of the Frankfurt School. We have to, yes, of course we have to abolish all of that, and we have to keep promoting European families, right? The way that Hungary works is great. Less taxes for women that have a certain amount of children. There are specific loans that you can get if you have children, if you want to buy a house for your family, and so on. So the way Hungary treats their families, it's great. But again, what you mentioned about the interference from other countries, I mean, that's like everything. Every other country interferes with every other country business. It's just the way it is. But you also have to mention that a lot of people say that Viktor Orban himself influences the elections with some money to vote. Is this true or not? Again, I'm not in the circles. I have not seen any evidence of this. So I'm not going to say that it's true, but I'm going to say that as an outside observer living here, there are rumors of that. I have seen political action like door-to-door conversations and motivation to vote through speech and through pamphlets, but I have not seen anything beyond that. So those rumors might be false or might be truth, like the same way that he's saying political interference from other countries. I have not seen it. So I'm going to put both of them at the same level and say that probably they are not truth from both sides. We'll see.
Well, thank you, Prime Minister, first of all, and thanks to the people of Hungary for welcoming me. This is a beautiful city, a city that I've been to once before on a personal trip probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I remember the first time that I came to this beautiful country, my wife was about 20 weeks pregnant with our second child, and now we've come back to Budapest, and my wife is 20 weeks pregnant with our fourth child. So there's an interesting way in which our trips to Hungary have rhymed. I also want to thank the President of the United States, who of course is a dear friend of Prime Minister Orban and a very strident supporter of Prime Minister Orban, because together the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of Hungary have been able to do amazing things. And we're here because we want to celebrate those amazing things. We want to build upon those amazing things. And of course, I want to help as much as I possibly can the Prime Minister as he faces this election season, which I believe is happening in just about a week, the election to elect the next Prime Minister of Hungary. Now, I don't expect, of course, the people of Hungary to listen to the Vice President of the United States. That's not primarily why I'm here. But I did want to send a signal to everybody, particularly the bureaucrats in Brussels who have done everything that they can to hold down the people of Hungary because they don't like the leader who has actually stood up for the people of Hungary. And I think it's important to say that. There are so many things that we could point to. There are so many economic pieces of cooperation, so much investment that's come into Hungary. Viktor Orban has been the single profound leader in Europe on the question of energy security and independence. It is funny to watch prime ministers and leaders in some of the Western European capitals talk about the energy crisis when, frankly, they should have been following the policies of Viktor Orban in Hungary. And if they had, the energy crisis that they're experiencing would be a lot less bad, because what's going on in Hungary right now is that while, yes, energy prices are elevated, they're far less elevated here than they are almost anywhere else in Europe. And that's because of the leadership of the man who's standing next to me. And I think that leadership can provide a model to the continent. We want Europe to be successful. We want European families to be able to afford to heat their homes and to build great things. We want Europe to be energy independent and even energy dominant, but it's not going to be energy secure if it continues to follow the failed policies of the past. And so I think Viktor has been a great example in charting a course that could lead to a better, more prosperous, and more energy secure Europe. There's a lot of other cooperation in technology and artificial intelligence and manufacturing. There are so many ways in which the United States and Hungary have been great economic partners, and that partnership has really accelerated over the past couple of years under President Trump's leadership. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm not here primarily, Viktor, because of the economic cooperation between our countries. I'm here because of the moral cooperation between our two countries. Because
Okay, so that was interesting. Before he talks about the moral cooperation, that's going to be an interesting topic for sure. But again, the way that the United States helped Hungary was by not sanctioning Hungary, right? It's crazy. It's really, really crazy that we are seeing not punishment as something positive, right? Instead of me giving you a piece of cake, I'm not giving you poison, right? I'm not giving you poison, so that's positive. In my eyes, in my perspective, I would give you a piece of cake, a piece of food, rather than not giving you poison being seen as something positive. Now, I agree 100% with him. Brussels has definitely made a lot of problems for us. Once again, the cooperation between Europe and Russia should be absolute. But again, the United States don't want that, because if Russia and Europe work together, they would be the biggest superpower in the world. Let's be honest. It's just the way it is. So neither United States, neither China wants that. I think China would be more acceptable with that because they respect more the culture. But the United States, as a direct competitor, they don't want that. So yeah, I really like the glazing that JD gave to Viktor, and the guy was like blushing like crazy. that was absolutely insane. But yeah, this is all truth, what he has been saying, but I'm not sure if it has impacted the population as it should. And my perspective from Portugal is that yes, in Portugal the oil and the gas is way more expensive, but that's not because of Brussels. That's the Prime Minister of Portugal that. It's not the Prime Minister. It's like the system in Portugal taxes a lot more the gas and the oil and diesel and so on than any other country, right? So while it's true, it also depends on the country, right? And their own policies in regards to the taxation over these consumables.
What the United States and Hungary together represent under Viktor's leadership and under President Trump's leadership is the defense of Western civilization, the defense of the idea that children should be able to go to school and get educated and not indoctrinated, the defense of the idea that European and American families should be able to transport themselves and be able to afford to heat and cool their homes, the defense of the idea that we are founded on a certain Christian civilization and Christian values that animate everything from freedom of speech to rule of law to respect for minority rights and protection of the vulnerable.
So first off, why are you talking about minority rights? Minority rights? Who cares about minority rights? Second, you talk about Christian values, but we have the United States bombing all kinds of countries. In which section of any Christian literature we have seen that you can bomb innocent people, that you can do this kind of atrocities that like you did in Vietnam, Iraq, Japan? Did we forget that the United States sent 2 atomic bombs to Japan? Okay. All these things that are going on, where is that in the Christian values? At least I'm not familiar with that. And in regards to the other things, to have the families and so on, Are we talking about European families? Are we talking about white families? Or are we talking about something else? Because if you're talking about something else, like in his case, he has an Indian wife, and even his wife does not accept his quote unquote, his Christian values. Are you exactly an example for anyone? I'm not sure, right? I'm not sure. General ideology, okay, that's like the basic thing. We're talking about basic things here that are contradictory of even biology itself, which is absolutely insane. But again, we have to really call out United States, and I'm sure Viktor Orban is not in a position that he can call out what the United States have been doing, but it's the truth. There is nowhere in the Bible, or I don't see any priest in Europe, at least, telling the United States to bomb other people to liberate them. Because what we have seen is that over and over again, we have people being sacrificed on the altar of democracy, and then we have situations like in Syria, where we have one of the leaders of the Taliban, that the United States supposedly say that they destroyed the World Trade Center, and we had Osama bin Laden, right? We had all these Al-Qaeda and so on. We had decades of propaganda from the United States telling us that they were very, very bad, but now everyone is hugging and holding arms and hands with these people. So can you please be a little bit more consistent so we can actually believe you? Because right now it's quite difficult.
So much that unites the United States and Hungary, and unfortunately, there have been too few people who have been willing to stand up for the values of Western civilization. Viktor Orban is the rare exception that has unfortunately proved the rule. That's one of the reasons why I'm here. I'm here because Viktor is a statesman, and we have seen so much talk in European capitals about the need to end the war in Russia and Ukraine, and we certainly agree with it. The war would have never started if President Trump had been president 4 years ago, but now that it has started, probably the two leaders who have done the most to actually end that destructive conflict have been Donald J. Trump and Viktor Orban in Hungary, and they've done it through diplomacy, through talking to people, through trying to understand what the Ukrainians and the Russians need to end the war. We're going to continue to participate in that process, but I think that it is a testament to the people of Hungary that you're a country of 10 million people, but I'm telling you, I've sat in all the rooms and I've been on all the phone calls. Your leadership has been a far, far more important and constructive partner for peace than almost anyone anywhere else in the world, and that is a great testament, I think, to the wisdom and the courage of the people of Hungary. And then finally, I just want to say one final observation about this election. What has happened in this country, what has happened in the midst of this election campaign is one of the worst examples of foreign election interference that I've ever seen or ever even read about. The bureaucrats in Brussels have tried to destroy the economy of Hungary. They have tried to make Hungary less energy independent. They have tried to drive up costs for Hungarian consumers, and they've done it all because they hate this guy. I think that what the people of Hungary, I encourage them to do, not who's pro or anti-Europe, not who's pro or anti the United States of America, but who is pro-you, who is pro the people of Hungary.
Okay, we have to stop this guy right here because he's talking absolute nonsense. So, yeah, it's true that Brussels has been fighting a war with Hungary and with Viktor Orban. That's 100% true. I agree. But the problem is that it's not only the European leadership, right? It's not only in Brussels that we have these problems. And the United States, to talk about political interference, so what we have been doing in Venezuela, what we have been doing in Angola decades ago, what we have been doing in all kinds of countries throughout the world, what you guys have been doing, is it not political interference? It's not political assassination, what you do sometimes. What you are doing right now in Iran, giving weapons to people that don't have the best interests of Iranian people to try to change their leadership, is that what you are not doing? Political interference? So I find it like absolutely hilarious. Once again, I'm not trying to defend Brussels the same way that I'm not going to try to defend the United States. When you do something correct, okay, that's cool, that will be mentioned. When you do something wrong, we are going to mention it as well. And in this case, you are talking out of your ass because you are doing something that you are criticizing something that supposedly Brussels did, which I agree they did. but at the same time, you are doing the same thing throughout the entire world. And in regards to the situation between Ukraine and Russia, it's a situation that could have been dealt years ago, right? Years ago, but it was not of the interest of the military industrial complex of the United States and the people that benefit out of it. And we also have to protect those biolabs, right? Those biolabs that are doing all kinds of things that were mentioned on the Epstein files. Those ones we also have to protect. And that's why this war is lasting a lot longer than it should. And of course, Russia has its own interests as well. There are certain areas of Ukraine that are extremely valuable for Russia. So of course, they want to control those. But again, I appreciate the diplomacy that we are having, but Europeans have not been benefiting at all from this situation. Europeans from Portugal to Russia, we have not been benefiting at all from this situation. So yeah, thank you very much, I guess.
My experience, I've seen a guy who has ferociously advocated for the interests of Hungary. I'm here to help him in this campaign cycle. And yet when I sat down with Viktor, we didn't talk about politics. We talked about Here are 5 things that we need, that the Hungarian people need from the United States in order to further our partnership and in order to achieve prosperity. That's the kind of leadership that is needed. And on everything from digital censorship, why are bureaucrats in Brussels telling social media companies what information they're giving to Hungarian voters? I think the voters of Hungary are adults. They are sovereign in their own country, and they should be able to look at whatever information they would like to about the election without somebody in a faraway capital treating them like children. Sovereignty, democracy are fundamentally about the people choosing. And part of the reason why we're here, and part of the reason why the President of the United States sent me here, is because that we think the amount of interference that's come from the bureaucracy in Brussels has been truly disgraceful.
I agree that democracy is all about people choosing. The problem is that for people to choose, they need to be informed. And once again, whether it is from Brussels, whether it is from the United States, we have insane levels of propaganda. The fact that JD Vance came to Hungary and made this speech and another speeches here, it's kind of political interference, right? It's kind of political interference. So I appreciate that. But again, let's set the standard. And once again, true, yes, democracy is all about people choosing, but people need to be informed. So whether it is the United States or Brussels changing the information or limiting the information to have access to people, well, either side is not great. So there you go.
I won't tell the people of Hungary how to vote. I would encourage the bureaucrats in Brussels to do the exact same thing. So, Viktor, thank you. It's good to see you. We'll take a couple of questions. Do you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We have time for a couple of questions. The first two goes to the Hungarian side, and then the floor is yours, Mr. Vice President. Az első kérdést a...
So the first question goes to Hungarian television. Csaba Jó. Thank you very much, and good afternoon. I would not like to stand up because of the cameras. Thank you. I have 2 questions. One is to Mr. Prime Minister, and the other one is to Mr. Vice President. So from the Prime Minister, I would like to ask if they touched upon the possibilities of ending the Russian-Ukrainian war during the negotiations. And from the Vice President, I would like to ask you to comment on the threats of President Zelensky towards Hungary and personally towards Viktor Orban. Thank you.
Okay.
We did touch upon the Russian-Ukrainian war, which is a painful subject. We're talking about a war waged between 2 Christian countries.
Okay, so this is a big topic. We have to stop right here because this is extremely important. If you guys are not aware of, yes, it's true that in its structure, Ukraine should be a Christian country, but it's not. Sort of is, but it's not. The problem with Ukraine is that it was part of the Khazar Empire, right? And the Khazarians, they really like their country, right? So recently, Ukraine has been absolutely invaded by Israelis. What are you Israelis doing in Ukraine? I have no idea, but you can find all kinds of videos out there on the internet of full cities that have been completely on the control of Israelis. And if you look at the background of Zelensky, he himself is not a real Ukrainian. is not even white, he's Jewish. So that's the thing that really blows my mind, is that yes, what he's saying is true, but again, Ukraine is not a Christian country anymore, right? At least whoever is controlling it, it's not, and has zero interests on the success of Ukraine. Because if they were really interested on the success of the Ukrainian people, they would have stopped this long time ago. But who cares about 10 more million dead Christians, right? We can pile those up on the same bodies of the other 40 million or more Christians that died with the Soviet Union. Who gives a F, right? What really matters is making sure that the Bolsheviks and their children from Israel survive, and that's a huge problem that needs to be mentioned.
Moreover, in the territory of Europe. So these two sentences actually set out how serious this war is. And I have always really looked up on the President of the United States, I'm talking about the current President, obviously, that from the first moment onward, he regarded these two dimensions as most important. In Europe, two Orthodox Christian countries are waging a war where tens and hundreds of thousands of people die and become injured for life. This is so terrible that you have to stop it at all costs. And since the United States, prior to President Trump, was in favor of this war, for us, the current position of the United States is indeed very valuable because it is fundamentally pro-peace. So if a Hungarian and a US politician meet, they cannot avoid talking about the Russian-Ukrainian war. Moreover, this war is being waged in the neighborhood of Hungary. Hungarians also die in this war, since in the current territory of Ukraine, multiple Hungarians live who are drafted. Occasionally, with brutal coercive measures, they are taken to the front where they die. So you cannot avoid talking about the Russian-Ukrainian war during, especially so because previously the President of the United States had initiated a peace summit between the US and Russia, and he recommended as a venue for these talks Budapest, the capital of Hungary, which is the perhaps only possible venue in Europe, and Hungary agreed to that. In fact, I must say that up to the level of the technical preparation of this meeting, we negotiated on those with both the President of the United States and the President of Russia, and Hungary remains ready. So that if the US and Russia believe that a peace summit is required between the two of them, then Budapest will be happy to provide itself as a venue for that meeting. And we are available. And that's all I can say to you.
Thank you for your willingness to host. And just to answer your question, so I'm not aware of President Zelensky threatening Viktor Orban. I know that there have been a lot of people who have threatened Viktor and have frankly not just threatened the people of Hungary, but have actually tried to exact costs on the people of Hungary.
Okay, so yes, what they said, what Viktor Orban said, it's all truth, and there has been this dispute with Zelensky and Viktor Orban, because Zelensky, he really thinks that is very important. Again, he has that Israeli mindset that is better than everyone else, and that he can boss everyone else. Who the F is Zelensky? He's I'm not even cross-dresser. He's a cross-dresser loser. We don't even know if he's gay or not, but he has like homosexual tendencies. So who is he to try to boss anyone? Again, he's a Israeli masking himself as a Ukrainian, and that's why he has this idea that he's chosen, and because he's chosen, he's better than everyone else and he can boss everyone else. Now, there was some obstruction of some cargo that was going through Hungary to Ukraine, and Viktor Orban did not allow that cargo to go through. And at the same time, Zelensky made accusations that were accusations of war, threats of war. The fact that Viktor Orban stayed so calm in regards to those threats, it's actually very impressive. I have to say that I was really impressed when he kept the environment so chill, because those were declarations of war that Zelensky made. So yeah, that was a big deal. We also have to mention that Zelensky made some false flag attacks against Poland. I think it was last year, where they bombed Poland pretending it was Russia. This is literally Israeli cookbook, right? This is exactly what they do in all their fights in order to instigate these wars with other countries. So yeah, Zelensky is playing the typical Israeli playbook. There has been this situation going on, but once again, Viktor Orban was able to keep it calm, and the situation right now, it's not very clear, but I think it's not going anywhere, and going nowhere, it's a good thing, so that's cool.
Because their leadership has been one of the few that's been wise and smart about the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Now look, you don't have to defend the morality of the war. I think Victor has, I certainly have, the President of the United States has condemned the invasion. We don't like the war, we want it to stop. That's not the question. The question is, how do you make it stop? And the answer is not by politicians who stand at microphones and beat their chests and act tough when somebody else's children are going off to fight in a conflict. You do it through sustained diplomacy.
This is hilarious. This is exactly what Trump have been doing in regards to Iran. Do I agree with Muslim culture? No. But should they be destroyed? No. It's their own choice. You guys were talking about democracy. If it is their own choice, then it's up to them, right? And we have no obligation of going there and bombing the schools of children just because they have some ties to the military, right? I think in no situation is justifiable the death of innocent children. And this is what the United States is doing. And this is exactly what Trump has been doing. He has been hitting on his chest like a gorilla when he's sending Americans to die in Iran for Israel. It's not for the United States. United States is not in danger by Iran. The only one that is in danger is Trump himself, because if the Israelis release any kind of information that compromises Trump and his family, well then bye-bye. All the mafia he has been doing with the crypto, all the thing that he has been doing with the Epstein files and beyond that, all those things could completely compromise Trump and his family and put all of them into prison, and worst. So the fact that JD Vance is saying this, I'm not sure who he's referring to, but this is literally what he's criticizing is literally what Trump has been doing in regards to Israel and Iran. So it's absolutely hilarious that he mentions such a thing.
It's hard to ask the people of Hungary, not Hungary, across Europe, what is the alternative to peace? Is it to continue feeding young men into this terrible, terrible war, to continue this completely ridiculous cycle of violence, or is it to get serious about diplomacy? Is it to continue to have skyrocketing energy prices where European economies are on the verge of collapse, or is it to sit down and get serious about the reason the president what's going on in Russian?
I apologize, this interference, it's not from me, it's from Forbes breaking news. Because this was live streamed. I think Forbes should get a little bit more professional, right? Forbes more professional, where you live stream and you record at the same time. So after you don't have these problems of buffering, or you can restructure the video through upload and fix these situations. But I guess that's way too professional. But anyway.
Ukraine than most countries anywhere else in the world. The president has asked us to work so diligently on it because he knows that it's bad. It's bad for commerce, it's bad for morality, it's bad for human life. We need to actually engage in some real diplomacy. Victor has been better at anybody at helping us understand what is the Ukrainians need and what do the Russians need in order to achieve peace. We're going to keep on working on that process. As you've all heard the president say, this war has been the hardest of all worked on to solve, but we're going to keep on working at it. The president has keep on working at it, but we need people in Europe to understand how to get this negotiation done. Victor's been a great part of it, which is why the president asked him about the Budapest summit, because I think we're ever going to get these leaders together, this is the perfect place to do it, a place of real statesmanship, a place that has shown itself very willing to be a positive force for peace.
Name it. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to you. I have one question to each of the participants. Mr. Orban, you have mentioned the serious energy crisis that we are facing. The ships that have been able to pass the Strait of Hormuz are just reaching Europe. Now that there is no oil coming from Russia or from Middle East, what do you think will happen with Europe, with Hungary, and what can the Hungarian-American Energy Cooperation mean for Hungary? And what do you think, will Brussels also lift the sanctions on the Russian energy?
We have, before he answers, we have to say that Europeans are very lucky that this happened during spring, right? Spring is going to be next month, or it already started. So the fact that this situation starting during spring, it's good, because if it was during the winter, tons of people would die from the cold alone. This year, the cold in Hungary, it was for like 2 months, minus 15 Celsius, which is pretty cold. I like cold, and I could not stand it. It was just so freaking cold. So yeah, the fact that the situation happened right now was a positive. Again, it's one of those situations that I'm not giving you poison, but I'm not punishing you. So I guess that's something positive. It's so nonsensical. It's ridiculous.
If I may.
Please.
So, according to recent U.S. intelligence reports, Ukraine may have interfered in the American elections, helping the Democrats. It has also come to light that the Ukrainian intelligence treats Hungary as an operational zone as well. What kind of political motivation could be behind Ukraine targeting conservative, patriotic political forces both in the United States and in Hungary? Thank you very much.
I think there is definitely a new situation in Europe, but the Hungarian elections are tightening our horizon, restricting our horizon. Therefore, we're not paying as much attention because of the elections to the developments. Of course, because we Hungarians are mainly preoccupied with the outcome of the elections next Sunday. The strategy that the Europeans have followed to support Ukrainians so far has ended, has failed. This strategy has failed. At the start already, it was an extremely strange idea to actually help the Ukrainians and try to bring about a situation where the protracted puts Russia inside states economically, that in the end the Ukrainians, from the perspective of the Ukrainians and the Europeans who support them, they will be forced to sit down with them in a weakened status that is preferable for the opposition. However, to wage an economic war in a country that has unlimited energy resources and has unlimited raw materials, while those waging the do not have energy and do not have raw materials, very strange idea. They might have believed that on Russia in the end will be enough to actually win this economic war. But what is happening now is all of a sudden everything has gained importance for Russians to dispose of, and much more of Ukrainians basically failed. But now to this. But we will be faced with an absolutely new situation after the Hungarian elections. The Hungarian situation is difficult. I do not want to make a secret of it, because it was first at the end of 2022 that the Ukrainians blockaded the gas that was from Russia. Fend that off with the Turks team, but just now, not much before the elections, and I think because of the upcoming elections, and in the hope of having a pro-Ukrainian government elected into office, they actually blockaded our oil pipeline as well. The oil supply route coming from Russia. Consequently, Hungary has had to tap into her reserves. There's two things we're doing. On the one hand, they have closed us off from oil. We have to supply the Hungarian economy, Hungarian consumers with fuel and with energy, and of course reopen the pipeline. And we have a plan to do that. We are actually executing that step by step. And at the end of this, I am convinced after the national forces win the election here in Hungary, that there will be no option left for the Ukrainians than to lift this blockade, to reopen the pipeline, and Hungary can just go back to normal operation. These are my, well, I wouldn't say hope, these are my plans. This is
Okay, so it seems like Viktor Orban's stopped, and yeah, I mean, I agree with him. Russia, Ukraine, it has been an asymmetric battle because Russia has infinite resources and Ukraine doesn't. Ukraine needs to be supplied by the European Union and the United States, And unlike some Americans believe, the European Union has supplied Ukraine with more than 50% of all the resources, including military ones, that Europe bought from the United States. So the United States is benefiting massively out of this. On the other hand, once again, Russia have endless resources, and their economy has been booming thanks to this. Usually, times of war, it's when your economy goes down. It's not for Russia. For Russia, it has been a blessing for them directly and indirectly. And now even the United States is unsanctioning many countries that were making business with Russia. And once again, this has been booming the Russian economy even more. So the fact that the pipelines that go through Ukraine to Hungary from Russia have been closed, and now Hungary has to tap on their reserves to keep the people going on, right? The society going on. This is a huge problem because, again, even that Hungary does not have the biggest population ever. The winter and the cold weather has been very persistent this year, and it causes a lot of fatalities. Some people think that only heat causes fatalities, but cold, especially for older people or people that suffer from some kind of chronic disease or just being unhealthy, like diabetes or anything like that, cold is going to affect them a lot more. It's not something very common here in Hungary, as far as I know, but yeah, cold is just very problematic, let's say that.
American elections, on Hungarian elections. This is part of the cost of doing business within some system. I try to remind myself that Ukraine, like the United States, they're a good people, and they're for people to try to say, you know, and that's what we support. For example, there were people who were campaigning Democrats literally in the weeks before President Trump won. The best interest of Europe and Hungary, the best interest of the United States for this war to come to as rapid of a close as possible. You know, this is the seeds of this war, the seeds of this conflict were actually planted well before the fight started. It was planted when European leaders were so deep into a particular energy economy, they cut themselves off from oil. That was a huge mistake then, and it's obvious that it's a huge mistake now. And it's funny when I hear people accuse, you know, my president of being my or to help Europe out with energy and liquid natural gas than anybody in the world, which weakens Russia. Because we would love our allies and smart energy policy so their consumers can pay less money, but also when, God forbid, there's a conflict, they can rely on us rather than another country for the energy that they need. So it's to me that very often people accuse this black leader pro-Russia, the very people who created an energy-weak economy in Europe to begin with, and that has done more than anything to make Ukraine weak and Russia strong. We just want the killing to stop. We want to get back to commerce. We recognize there's a lot of difficult issues. The way to solve this is to talk to one another. It's part of diplomacy.
Okay, so what JD Vance is saying is partially truth, because yes, the Ukrainian-Russian war did not start recently. It started probably in 2008, maybe even before that. The fact that Bill Clinton never wanted to shake hands with Putin, that was always a big problem. And Putin does not like to be the unpopular kid that everyone rejects, right? And there is no reason for that. Western society, Russia is part of Western society. What's the difference? The entire world nowadays, it's Western society. Let's be honest, it's just the way it is, because Western society is the best society. The West is the best, as they say. So, yeah, this situation that is mentioning that the war did not start, okay, sure, but the war did not start now just because, or is it because you did not respect the Minsk agreements, right? From 2008, the Minsk agreements, then NATO keep pushing further and further towards Russia, and then you wanted to put military bases next to Russia. We already know how that works. We can see clearly how that works in Iran, right? In Iran. You put your military bases all around Iran, and you wanted to do the same thing with Russia because you want to control those countries. You want to make sure that their economies will benefit you. And if that's not the case, you'll destroy them. We saw that also with Gaddafi, right? We have many examples of these situations. So again, him saying that, oh, it's not Trump's responsibility. I mean, yeah, sure, it's not Trump's responsibility, but did he do something different to go in the different direction? Not exactly, right? So at the end of the day, it's European suffering. And it seems like the United States are okay with that because they don't have European interests at best. Because this thing that, we are a Christian societies and Western societies and so on, at the end of the day, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. They don't care. They care about the commerce when they are winning. When they are not winning on the commerce, they are bombing them. It's just the way it is. That's the truth. That's the facts. So, yeah, let's see what else.
It's your call, please. Sure. So I'm going to call on a couple members of my pool because they traveled all night and are here with us. With Natalie at the Washington Post.
The clock is ticking to when the deadline looms for avoiding bombing infrastructure in Iran to the Stone Ages, as the president has said. Do you have any new information to believe that a deal can be reached by then? And secondly, there's been some rhetoric from this administration, your administration, about supporting the United States in the strikes against Iran. Do you agree with that? And what do you make of the idea that God is on the side of the U.S. in these strikes?
Well, so you asked if there's new information.
Oh my God. She asked if God is on the side of what the United States is doing, right? So first off, I'm atheist. I'm a very particular individual. I'm atheist, but I believe in Jesus. What does that mean? I believe in the principles that supposedly Jesus believed in and that spread with his message, right? Was Jesus a real person or whatever else? I'm not sure. But the ideas persist beyond the man. And that happens with other men as well. Some painters, some spokesmen like Charlie Kirk. We have many examples of men that their ideas persist beyond their death. And this situation that is God on your side when you are bombing children in Palestine, when you are bombing children in Libya, when you are bombing children in Egypt, when you are bombing children in Syria, when you are bombing children in Iran, when you are bombing children in Iraq. Is God on your side? Well, not the God of the Christians. And once again, I'm an atheist, so let's keep that in mind. But Christians do not believe in these type of things. In genocides, I don't think so. I don't see anywhere in the Bible that says that, maybe on the Talmud or something like that. But it's just something that, if you are going to be honest about it, probably not, right? But I'm sure he's going to glaze Trump, and yeah. And you have to remember that Trump declares himself and his allies declare him the first Jewish president. So maybe that will tell you more about Jewish people and what they believe in than anything else.
I don't, unless I have a text message from Steve. Well, I do have a text message from Steve Witkoff. Wouldn't you like to know the subject of this message? But no, I need to read it first before I talk about it. But here's what time is it in the United States right now? Okay, that makes sense. All right. Okay, so Natalie, on this question of the deal, I really think there are two pathways. The president's been very clear about this. There are two pathways that this thing is ultimately going to end. First of all, the United States has largely accomplished its military objectives. There are still some things that we'd like to do, for example, on Iranian ability to manufacture weapons that we'd like to do a little bit more work on militarily. But fundamentally, the military objectives of the United States have been completed. So that means, as the president has said, very shortly this war is going to conclude. And I think the nature of the conclusion is ultimately up to the Iranians. I think there really are two pathways, and I'm oversimplifying this a little bit, but I think pathway one is where the Iranians decide they're going to be a normal country. They're not going to fund terrorism anymore. They're going to be part of the world system of commerce and exchange. And that's going to mean much better things for them economically. It's going to mean better things for the peace and safety of the world. It's going to mean a lot of good things for a lot of people all over the planet.
This is absolutely hilarious because it's not in the hands of the United States or Iran. It's in the hands of Israel. Israel is the one that has not been respecting the ceasefires. Israel is the one that has been forcing the United States' hand into this war. So to blame Iran that it's their responsibility that the war does not stop, 100% bullshit, 100% bullshit. And again, I understand that JD Vance has to take this position because he's sponsored by some of the actors in the background. Bro, like this is absolute propaganda. This is absolute propaganda pro United States, anti-Iran, and it's not factual. It's just not factual. You can find anywhere. You can look at the Jimmy Dore show or any other shows that have been going on this topic. Geopolitics YouTube channel as well. There are different channels that have been covering this, and you can see for a fact that it's absolutely not truth. Absolutely not truth. So once again, saying that it's in Iran's hand to stop this war is just not the case. So JD Vance here, absolute downhill.
That's option A. Okay. Option B is that the Iranians don't come to take the next the economic situation in Iran is going to continue to be very, very bad, and frankly, it will probably get worse. And so, what the president has asked the entire team to do, particularly Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, what are the contours of a potential deal? What are they willing to do? Because militarily, it doesn't matter one way or the other to us. It's fundamentally a question of what does this look like afterwards, and that has been what the negotiations have been focused on. And the president's also been very clear that while the Iranians are going to extract much more economic costs than Iran has an ability to extract costs on us or on our friends in the world. So I hope that they're smart. The president has set a deadline for about 12 hours from now in the United States. We're going to find out, but there's going to be a lot of negotiation between now and then, and I'm hopeful that it gets to a good resolution.
Their friends, remember, their friends. What they are mentioning, it's Israel. We have to mention that Trump on Truth Social said that he's going to bomb Iran back to the Stone Age. Like, what kind of Christian would say this? What kind of Christian? No one that considers themselves Christian or a Christian adjacent like myself would ever support this. It's just ridiculous that you are saying this. It's just absolutely ridiculous that you're saying something like this. And once again, blaming Iran on something that Israel and the United States have been doing throughout the Middle East and throughout the world. Right? Because we still have Venezuela. We still have every other country that has been suffering the wrath of the United States and his friends. And mentioning Jared Kushner and whatever else, you are mentioning a bunch of oligarchs. Everyone talks about the Russian oligarchs. What about the American oligarchs that whisper with the president, that are their friends, that are their advisors? What about those oligarchs? Why no one uses this word oligarch when they're talking about United States and their politicians, right? Because again, if we are not going to be hypocritical about this, and we are not going to talk about European influence or other influences, then we have to be correct with our vocabulary and use oligarch for both of them.
The second question you asked about, is God on our side? Is God on, whose side? I think the attitude towards military conflict has always been to pray that we're on God's side. And my own view is that we're doing this for the right reasons. We don't want a regime that is committed acts of terrorism to have it the world's most dangerous zone, because that would mean a lot of innocent people dead. I certainly hope that God...
So we are on God's side. It's not God is on your... So he flipped the question, right? Is God on your side? He flipped the question. No. We are on God's side. What are you talking about? And you don't want terrorism? What is bombing the schools of children? What is what Trump said? Bombing their water plants, bombing their power plants, bombing their bridges. Is that not terrorism? It is absolute terrorism. What you guys did 2 weeks ago, that the entire capital of Iran was, I'm not sure if it was exactly on the capital or outside of the capital, but you had fire throughout the entire city. Is that not terrorism? Is that not an absolute nightmare? Is that not hell on earth? Yes. So calling other people terrorists just because they attack your friends, Israel, right? Israel, it's all about Israel. The chosen people, the people that are better than everyone else. Is that not real terrorism? I would consider that as, once again, a Christian adjacent, and I think every other Christian would say the same. Unless you are like a crypto Jew, how do you call it? The Christian Zionists, right? I think that's maybe those ones will not agree. But we are talking about zealots. We are talking about people that are completely insane. These Christian Zionists, they are cultists. They are not religious people. They are cultists. There is a fine margin between a cultist and a religious person. And those Christian Zionists, they are absolute cultists.
Agrees with the decision that Iran shouldn't have a nuclear weapon, but I'll keep praying about it. And if he gives me a good answer, next question.
Pakistan has a nuclear weapon. North Korea has a nuclear weapon. China has a nuclear weapon. Russia has nuclear weapons. All kinds of countries have nuclear weapons. Why Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon if they feel like it's necessary? Oh, because they are sponsoring terrorism and all these things. Okay, the United States is sponsoring terrorism as well. They, in the 90s, they were working with Al-Qaeda. Once again, the ones that supposedly help to destroy the World Trade Center and so on, Bin Laden, all these things, you were working with them. So, who are the real terrorists? Supposedly, Israel has atomic weapons as well, nuclear bombs. Are they not terrorists? Once again, bombing the school of children, is that not an act of terrorism? What we have seen in Gaza, genocide, absolute genocide. Is that not terrorism? Then what it is, JD Vance? Tell me what it is.
Let's see. I think we have Reuters and AP. Let's do Reuters. Okay, good. I checked my earpiece to see if somebody in my staff would tell me who I should call on, but nobody answered. This is just Hungarian, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. This is Sumaya from Reuters. I have a couple of questions. I do think you have to read that text because we have reporting that the United States is striking some targets in Kharg Island. You did say that the military objectives of this war have been achieved. So could you help us understand why the president is still threatening to attack every bridge and every power plant in Iran? You also
Terrorism.
Up soon. Did not give it timeline. We had said 46 weeks, and we're now in week 6. Do you have a specific timeline? Excuse me, these are spontaneous questions.
A lot of questions.
Okay, I'll stop. The Hungary question is: if Prime Minister Orban does this, do you commit the United States to working with the new leader? Will you have a golden age relationship with the new leader? Thank you so much.
Well, of course, we're going to work with whoever wins the Hungarian election because we love the people of Hungary and it's an important relationship. But Viktor Orban is going to win the next election in Hungary, so I feel very confident about that and about our continued positive relationship.
Political interference.
That's the plan. Okay, all right. So you asked about Kharg Island. My understanding, having talked to Pete and General Kane about this, is that we were going to strike some military targets on Kharg Island. I believe we've done so. The president's deadline has been followed by us and everybody else, and he said very clearly we're not going to strike targets until the Iranians either make a proposal or don't make a proposal, but he's given them until Tuesday at 8 o'clock. So I don't think the news in Kharg Island represents a change in strategy or represents any change from the President of the United States. He continues to say the deadline is 8 o'clock. And the deadline is for what? Fundamentally, what Iran is trying to do, because they've been defeated militarily, is they're trying to extract as much economic pain on the world as possible. And the President of the United States is a man who recognizes leverage. That if the Iranians want to exact a certain amount of pain, the United States has to exact greater pain. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I want to go so aggressively, but is in the Iranians' program. I think has talked about this. One thing I will say is that the Iranians were not the factors before the war started. Negotiators now. So we recognize there's some delay sometimes in transmitting messages from one person to another, but we feel confident that we can get a response, whether it's positive or negative. We're going to get a response from the Iranians by 8 o'clock tonight. I hope they make the right is we a world where oil and gas is flowing freely, where people can afford to heat their homes and cool their homes, where people can afford to transport themselves to work. That's not going to happen if the Iranians are engaged in acts of economic terrorism. So they've got to know we've got tools in our toolkit that we so far haven't decided to use. The President of the United States can decide to use them, and he will decide to use them if the Iranians don't change their course of conduct. I think that's it.
Mr. Vice President, Miniszterelnök úr, köszönöm szépen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. Vice President. That concludes our press conference. Thank you very much for being with us, and goodbye.
Okay, so there you go. That was the meeting between JD Vance and Viktor Orban. Lots of problematic topics. Absolute failure of the United States in this quick war against Iran. I would consider it an absolute failure, right? Like she was saying, 3-4 weeks. Now we are already on the 6th week. So it's definitely extending. We are talking about ground troops in Iran, which we know exactly what's going to happen. Iran is very strong military, and if they do that, it's going to be an absolute slaughter to the children of America. But again, everything for Israel, right? Everything for Israel. That's going to be the video. Check out the channel in the future when we have more videos. Make sure you turn on the bell and all these things if you are interested in listening a different perspective. And there you go. I'll catch you guys later.